Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. That's weird. Okay, all good. Wait. Am I just dumb? I am dumb. I've been gone too long. That's what it is. What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. If you are confused and you're wondering, where is Dan Dockich? This is not an April Fool's joke. Yesterday, sadly, was Dan's last day. My show, the Real Jonathan Smith Show, will be on from noon to 3 going forward. Some of you may be familiar with me. You know, I sat in the chair that Chris is still sitting in. That's right. Chris is still with us. Hallelujah.
Hey, what's up?
And yeah, so this is the new show going forward. The phone lines are open, 317-228-1430. If you want to call in, say hi, ask a question, make fun of me, that's fine. You can also go to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to watch the live stream there, you can comment. There's a whole chat. Same thing on X. You can watch the X stream on my personal account, __ Jonathan Smith. So last night, I was sitting down, just beaming from ear to ear. You can ask Chris. Every time I talk to him about coming back, I'm just like overjoyed. And I asked myself a question, like what happened in like the 5-ish months that I was gone that I really wish I could have covered. And, you know, I sat there and I racked my brain, and my wife was like, Jonathan, are you okay? Like, that's how hard I was racking my brain. And I couldn't really think of anything. There wasn't any story where I was like, man, like that thing I really wish that I could have talked about. And I had this realization that nothing in the world of Indianapolis sports has really changed all that much in the last 5 months. Like it's as if time just completely stood still. Indiana basketball still sucks. Purdue can't get over the hump still. The Colts probably going to go 9-8 again. The Pacers were bad like everybody expected for them to be. And IU football is still, hands down, by far, the best sports team going on in this state. And I want to start with Indiana basketball because I was so excited for this season. I was so excited to see Coach DeVries because he did a great job at Drake. And then he went to West Virginia and like had all of his players get hurt, and they were still kind of on the edge, on the bubble of making the NCAA tournament. And so I was excited to see the beginning of his tenure at IU. And then it went terribly. Missing the NCAA tournament is just flat out unacceptable, but it has become the new normal for Indiana basketball. Now, I don't know if anybody cares, because they haven't been good since 2016. That's a decade. That was the last time they made the Sweet 16. They've only made the NCAA tournament 8 times in the last 20 years. And again, I'm questioning if anyone really cares, because Indiana is now obviously a football school. I'm kind of kidding. I know you guys care. I was at the game where Iowa came to Bloomington and beat Indiana 74-57. And the section that I was in was the loudest section. It was the section that was booing. A lot of booing, and there should have been. Okay, and there's going to be more booing next year if this doesn't get turned around. We have been watching the NCAA tournament this year, and we just saw Ben McCollum. He went to Drake last year, immediately made the NCAA tournament. And then he goes to Iowa and immediately makes the Elite Eight. Happened so fast. Dusty May, this is what, his second year at Michigan, and they may win the national title. He may have the best team in college basketball in year 2. Mark Pope made a Sweet 16 his first year at Kentucky. John Calipari shows up at Arkansas, back-to-back Sweet 16s. Will Wade, whether you like him or not, you probably don't because that guy's a scumbag. He took North Carolina State, a team with significantly less resources than Indiana, to the tournament in his first year. And guess what? He's probably going to take LSU to the tournament next year because he's a good basketball coach. When you are at a program that has the resources that you need to win, and IU is undoubtedly one of those programs, then you have to win immediately in this day and age of college basketball, of college sports in general. Because you know that the Indiana donors are giving money in order for that basketball team to be good. And then they weren't. And I'm telling you right now, if Coach DeVries misses the tournament again, if Coach DeVries makes the tournament and doesn't win a tournament game next year, then his seat should instantly become hot. Instantly. Because he's at a program, he's at a school that is invested in basketball. And at this point in time in the world of college sports, if you are at an invested program, then you should be good every single year. And that obviously wasn't the case with IU this year. Okay. Now, staying in the world of basketball, don't worry. We're going to get to the Colts here at some point, and I'm very excited to do so. Kevin Potts is going to join the show at 2:30 to actually talk a little bit about the NFL draft, what the Colts could and should do. Aaron Torres, he's going to join the show at 1 o'clock as well to talk a little more Final Four. I just briefly want to hit on the Pacers. They're awful this year. They're going to be finals contenders next year. I loved the Zubac trade when it happened. I think he's going to do a lot of things that they need, and that's going to level them up to compete with the best teams in the NBA again next year. Now let's get to the Colts. The Colts are still destined to go 9-8. Honestly, with where they sit right now, obviously, we still need the draft to happen and those things. Players are going to get hurt. As of right now, the Colts are still destined to go 9-8. I really think that that's going to be their ceiling this following season. I can't believe we're going into year 10 of Chris Ballard. Year 10 of not even mediocrity. I mean, I can't believe it. Anyway, chances are at this time next year, I'm going to say the same thing. I can't believe we're going into year 11 of Chris Ballard because just the acceptance of mediocrity is just so, it's disgusting, quite frankly. There's really no other way to put it. And again, the Colts are destined to go 9-8. And I believe that this is a franchise that has reached a pretty similar level as the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls go around 500 every year. The people of Chicago pay good money to, go to those games every year. And then Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls, laughs at all of them. Like, I can't believe you guys showed up again. Isn't that amazing? And that's what is happening here. The Colts go 8-9, 9-8. There's a little bit of hope around the middle of the season. The Colts are like 6-6. I was like, they go 4-1 down the stretch here. Maybe we sneak into the playoffs. The AFC South, it's filled with pitiful football teams. Maybe, one of them falters down the stretch. And then they continue to play 500 football. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. That's what happened this year. Every team that they were supposed to beat, they pretty much did. Every team that they weren't supposed to beat, they pretty much lost to. And I understand that part of that is because, Daniel Jones got hurt and Anthony Richardson got hurt and so on. But every year the Colts go 8-9 or 9-8. There's a little bit of like a teasing in there. And then they miss the playoffs. And then the Irsay family counts their money and they laugh. And they've got big smiles on their faces. Meanwhile, you're at home watching the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars play in the playoffs. And we're probably going to get that again this next season. The Colts stuff, man. Chris, what is your take on the Colts?
One day at a time, man. I think, I don't know. I told Dan once upon a time that I would not buy any more tickets until they changed the front office situation because it's just so mediocre and they're just trying to get by. Man, there's so many things you could say. I don't even know.
I I feel like they're just boring. Like I'm not excited. Like you ready for year 2 of Daniel Jones coming off of an Achilles tear? I'm not. That doesn't excite me at all.
Definitely ready for a change. However, like you, I know that you were a Daniel Jones fan. Like,
I'm not. I'm not a Daniel Jones
okay,
fan.
maybe it
I
was.
think he's terrible. But that's
Fair enough.
We can get to that in a moment. That's okay.
There was somebody else that used to call in, fan of Daniel Jones.
C. Fitch. It was 1,000%
Probably.
C. Fitch.
My second favorite team is the Giants. All right. I know he came from the Giants. You know what I mean? So it was already rough. And whenever he was with the Giants, it was like a deer in headlights already. So I didn't want to see him come here. However, I was impressed with what he did here. He fit well in the system. Under Steichen, he did a lot better than what he did with Daboll.
Yeah,
so
he did. And I just
at least there's that.
You got Carly Ursay Gordon. I guess like all 3 sisters are owners, but she's kind of like at the forefront. I don't really know how all that works. I don't really care. But she was on with Pat McAfee the other day, and she was just talking. She was like, I just think it's really important for the head coach and for the quarterback to get along and for them to have camaraderie and all these things. And like that sounds, fine and dandy. But you know what? You know what immediately causes people to have camaraderie? Winning. Winning fixes everything. It just it does. And like if Anthony Richardson had showed up and just started winning games, who would have had great camaraderie? Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson. Because when you win, it fixes everything. And look, I get it. There's probably some guy out there listening like, Daniel Jones, he won all these games when he was here. Yeah. Did you see the schedule? Did you also notice that the longer he played, the worse he got? And I also can't shake the image of Kirk Cousins playing in Atlanta his first year off of the Achilles tear. It's brutal. He's like limping out there. And that's not like a Kirk Cousins is like a problem thing. It's just he just tore his Achilles. And so I'm not a believer. I think this year is going to go horribly. The draft, we're going to get all these articles and people are going to be pumped like, they took Elijah Surratt in the 3rd round. We're saved. Like, I don't know about that. It feels like a wee bit of a stretch. So I'm not excited. I think that they're going to be bad again. And this time I think it's going to be like really bad. And there's a part of me, Chris, I don't know how you feel about this. Part of me is kind of like, I hope they go 3-14 because it feels like that's the only thing that's going to fix the issue that's been here for a decade now in Chris Ballard.
I would agree with that. I think that has to happen. And you can't even really put the whole blame on Daniel Jones because they kind of left him on an island. They expected him to go out and play injured. You're already setting him up for failure as it is. So, I mean, what do you want? What do you want from him? He's only one guy. And he was doing okay up until that point. But, man, you got to limit your expectations if you're the Colts. If you're just going to bring in guys for them to get injured and expect them to perform and get you to the playoffs, then there's got to be a change somewhere.
Yeah, and here's the really frustrating thing about it, Chris. And this is where I may just be stupid. It's very possible. I like Shane Steichen. I actually think Shane Steichen's a really good head coach. And I say that, and people are, you know how people can be. Like, how can you think that? They haven't made the playoffs. Here's my thing. We complain about this roster every single year. And I have a theory. I call it the Les Miles theory. I don't know if you remember him. Head football coach at LSU, won a national title like early 2010s after Nick Saban left. And Les Miles was a terrible football coach. He was awful. But do you know what he had? Better players than everybody else.
That's fair.
And so it didn't matter. Like they kicked Tyrann Mathieu off of one of his teams, and it just didn't matter because they had another great player behind him. And so, like, when your roster is bad or average, then like how can I sit here and like fully evaluate you as a head coach, especially when we saw him show up in year one and take Gardner Minshew and almost make the playoffs. Like if Tyler Goodson catches a swing pass, then like we're golden. We're good. We make the playoffs. But anyway, I'm getting riled up over nothing. But that's okay. We got a great show in line for you today. Again, Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres podcast, also from Fox Sports Radio. He's going to join the show coming up at 1 o'clock. We're going to talk Final Four and more college basketball. 2:30, we got Kevin Potts, who is a name that you're probably going to know pretty well. By the time the NFL draft happens, he is my go-to guy for all things draft. He evaluates everybody. He puts in more time than I would say anybody else, and because of that, he's often right about things. So he's going to join the show at 2:30, and yeah, when we come back in about 3 minutes, more on Indiana football, the best program in the state, and why they're the best program in the state. And then, of course, it's Wednesday. And if you listened to the Real Jonathan Smith show before I left for a little bit, you know that every Wednesday we do Over the Hump Day. That is also coming your way here in about 3 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can follow the station on X as well at Ticket 1430. Or maybe you're listening on the app, 1430 AM, however you're listening. It's greatly appreciated. And if you're wondering, where is Dan? Is this some kind of a sick April Fool's joke? It's not. I am Dan's replacement, I guess. So yesterday was his last show. If you want to know why he left, you can go find that podcast, and he does a really good job of explaining it all in there. The most important thing, though, that I know he would want me to say, he did not get fired. Okay. All right. So Indiana football, it's the best program in the state. And it's not close, and it's not going to change anytime soon, because the two things that you have to have in college sports right now is money, check. Shout out to Mark Cuban. And they have the head coach, right? Coach Signetti has quickly taken, the college football world by storm. He's probably the best coach in college football right now. I'm sure Ryan Day and Kirby Smart would have something to say about that. But if you told me at a bar and you were like, hey, Jonathan, I listened to your show and it sucks, I'd be like, that's okay. But I just want to let you know that, Coach Signetti is the best coach in college football. I'd be like, yeah, that's a totally reasonable take to have. And when you have those two things in college football, the money and the right head coach, you are going to win a ton of games every single year. Are you going to win the national title every year? Probably not, right? But that is currently the position that the Hoosiers find themselves in. And it's because, ultimately, of Coach Signetti. Your head coach now is just so important, because if boosters don't like your head coach, then they don't give the money. And obviously, Coach Signetti is a very likable guy. So here's the thing, though. Here's my favorite thing about him. He does a great job of recruiting the portal every year. And, the transfer portal in every sport has really become and I would argue, the most important part of every team in every sport in college sports. And when that happens and you bring in guys from different programs, they develop different habits. Practice is different. Okay, the weight training is different. What you're allowed to wear at practice is different. And I don't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a comment, or there was some, Indiana, IU football reporter tweeted something out about how some wide receiver from Michigan State who transferred in is supposed to be good. We'll see if he's good or not. He showed up to practice wearing gold cleats. Do you know what I'm talking about, Chris?
I've heard this, yeah.
Okay. And, Coach Signetti was like, he learned what a butt chewing was. Like, I'm sure he did. And, you have to have that. Especially, I think, now in sports with the way that things have changed. When you're bringing in all these new faces every single year, you have to set standards quickly. Like, as soon as someone steps out of line, you got to pull them back immediately, whether that's football, basketball, whatever. Probably a little more important in football, because you have just so many more bodies and so many more guys to talk about. And as long as that level of discipline and that standard, because, there's people out there who are like, I don't know why that's a big deal. It's because you're on a team and you should look like the rest of your team, especially in football, where, it's the ultimate team game and all that yada, yada stuff. Okay. So yeah, Indiana football, as long as that standard remains there, they're going to continue to be the best, most well-ran. That's what the Colts should do. They should call Coach Signetti and say, hey, Coach, the thing that you're doing down there at Bloomington is pretty special. Do you want to maybe help us out a little bit? And then, he can say, he's going to say no, because why would he ever touch that? I don't want that Colts bull crap to rub off on Coach Signetti. That wouldn't be good for anybody. Anyway, so because of Coach Signetti, Indiana football is going to continue to be the best sports team in the state of Indiana. And Purdue basketball is going to continue to be the most disappointing team in Indiana. That leads us to my favorite segment that we're going to do on every Wednesday, Over the Hump Day. It's my favorite sounder. It's the best one I've ever made by far. Let's get into Over the Hump Day.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo! Hump Day!
No, as a coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Good old Mike Woodson couldn't quite find a way to get him over the hump. I love that sounder. It's so good.
Dude, that was sensual.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's like I said, it's the best one I've ever made. It's so good.
I like it.
As always, the phone lines are open, 317-228-1430. If you're a Purdue fan and would like to let out the sadness of yet another, deep-ish tournament run, making it to the Elite Eight, and Purdue still can't win the big one. Okay, they continue. The record still stands. They have won more NCAA tournament games than any other program without a national title. I love Coach Painter. I think everybody does. He's brilliant. People that are way smarter than me rave about the sets that he runs and the down screens and all that kind of stuff. Okay? When he speaks to the media, he's charismatic, but he's also honest and he gives real answers. He doesn't, bullcrap anybody or anything like that. He's a very likable figure, and it's why he's been the head coach at Purdue for 21 years now. Okay? Now, he's been the head coach at Purdue for 21 years, and they've made one Final Four. And it was a big deal. When it happened, you got Zach Edey, two-time, National Player of the Year, their first Final Four in 44 years. Their third one in that program's history. And like any other year, they would have had a great chance to win a national title. They just ran into UConn, who was an absolute juggernaut that year. With that being said, every year that I watch Purdue, I have the exact same concerns when March rolls around. They always lack athleticism. And that seems to be the thing that normally costs them in March. If you go back and you watch them play that game against Arizona, and if you stop the game just at random points, and you ask yourself the question, if I had to make a list of the most athletic guys on the floor, no matter what point in that game you decided to stop it at, the first five all would have been in Arizona uniforms. They couldn't stay in front of the Arizona guards. I love Oscar Clough. Love everything that he brings. Trey Kaufman-Renn, been a stud, scored 1 million points the last 2 years. But they were smaller and less athletic than their matchups. And that is a terrible combination. No matter how good or how skilled you are constantly battling uphill. And when you have a coach like Matt Painter, who is brilliant in the way that he gets guys open and manipulates coverages and does those things, then you're going to win a lot of games, right? Because when you look at the Purdue roster, one thing is always apparent, the amount of skill that they have up and down. But in that game, man, it would have been a lot easier for Purdue to score buckets in that second half if they had one guard who could just win off the bounce one-on-one. They haven't had that since maybe Carson Edwards, and he was more of a shooter than anything else. I was watching Carson Edwards highlights last night from that 2019 March Madness run because I'm weird. Dude, I forgot how awesome he was. Completely forgot about it. Anyway, athleticism is everything. And I think that the way that Purdue plays, if you've seen their, production and their results over the years, then like you understand that. Right? And it's apparent. Athleticism isn't everything, but it's something. It's a pretty important part of basketball. It's a lot easier when you can give the ball to a guy like Darius Acuff, who's just, the quickest and fastest dude on the floor. It's a lot easier to score the basketball when you have a guy like Cam Boozer. I know people knock his his athleticism. That dude's more athletic than I think people realize. Point. It's a lot easier to score when you give the ball to AJ Dybantsa, who's the best athlete on every floor that he ever steps on, and say, hey, go get me a bucket. Okay? All of those guys would have been the most athletic player on Purdue's roster. You could have taken anyone who wasn't a walk-on from that Arizona roster and put them on Purdue's roster, and they immediately would have been the most athletic player on Purdue's roster. Okay, losing Camden Heide last year in the portal to Texas, it's a big deal. It would have been a lot easier to defend a guy like Koa Pete with a guy like Cam Heide, who's a legitimate 6'7" and really athletic. I don't want to overly critique one of the best coaches in college basketball. But at what point does Coach Painter need to make an adjustment to the types of players that he goes and gets? At what point does he and his recruiting staff need to put a larger emphasis on going and getting players that are more athletic? He has done an excellent job. He and his staff have done an excellent job of developing players during his time at Purdue. Now, just imagine if those development skills were used on larger, more athletic players. Maybe that's what needs to happen in order for them to win their first national title. Maybe that's what needs to happen for them to get over the hump for the first time in their program's history. Just a thought. Again, it's Matt Painter. That dude wins 25 or more games every year, it seems. And, next year is going to be interesting. No Braden Smith, no Fletcher Lawyer, no Trey Kaufman-Wren. 3 guys that have been like the pillars of that Purdue program over the last 4 years. They're all gone. And I'm sure, for those who are looking way ahead, it's like, how good are they going to be? What are they going to look like? I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to be really good because Matt Painter's the head coach. But are they going to be good enough to win a national title? Probably not. And it's a really interesting thing because March Madness, it's one and done, and it's weird, and you can't overreact to something, right? Like Wisconsin lost to High Points in the first round of the tournament this year. Probably the biggest first round upset. Okay, the biggest second round upset being Iowa beating Florida. I really hope my boss is listening right now. Just wanted to remind him of that. And, Wisconsin shouldn't be rethinking everything that they've done because they got upset in the first round against a good High Point team. Okay, like random one-off things shouldn't impact the way that you build a roster and the way that you build a team. But when you're Purdue and you've kind of done the same thing for like the last decade and it still hasn't paid off, at what point do you make a slight adjustment? I think it's a really fair question to ask because the goal isn't to make a Final Four or lose in the Elite Eight or anything like that. At some point, you have to make an adjustment in order to be able to win the entire thing. And I'm just kind of waiting on Purdue to do that. We'll see if they do it, in this next recruiting cycle, in the next transfer portal thing, but we'll see. I'm not betting on it because it's certainly not broken. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. To quote Dan Dockich, don't F with winning. But at the same time, sometimes you don't have to F with it, but you can like tweak it a little bit to make it work out for you. So I'm going to run that idea by Aaron Torres here in about 25 minutes when he is set to join the show. We'll talk Final Four. We'll talk Purdue, probably a little bit of IU in there as well. So he's always a blast whenever he comes on. So he'll be in Indy here soon as well. So, Final Four, Saturday. Can't wait. You know what I love, Chris?
What's that, boss?
I love boss. Don't
Sorry,
man. That's weird.
Whenever Dan came in, I would just be like, "What's up, boss?"
Okay.
But, all right.
Okay.
We're gonna change that.
I love that the NCAA is like, you know what I think is a great idea? let's just play all of our national championships on Monday nights. That's what they do for everything. That's, like we have the Final Four Saturday. We have the national title game on a Monday night. What's up with that? I don't.
Is that what's happening?
Yeah, they do the same thing for football. They play it on a Monday night. I'm like, hey, how about we play it on Saturday?
Yeah.
How about that?
I would agree with that. What do you think about whenever they have the Sweet 16 and there's still multiple games on at the same time? Do you think it would be better like an NFL playoff, whereas they have a 1:00 game and a 3:00 game? You know what I'm saying?
I know why they do it. They, for some reason, care about the people on the West Coast. And if you start a game at 10 a.m. our time, which I don't think that they wouldn't start them that early for the Sweet 16. But if you started at 10 a.m. our time, it's 7 a.m. out there. And again, I don't really care about the West Coast, but they do for some reason. I don't know. And so that's why they do it the way they do it now. My thing is can we not just do 6, 7, 8, and 9? Stagger them more, because right now, when one game starts at 7:30, the other one starts at 7:45.
Right.
I'm flipping back and forth the whole way. I can't just fully lock in on one. And then when you do it that way, your last two games start at 9:45 and 10.
I would agree with that because,
that.
once you see a really good ending, then you can flip over to the next one. It's already in progress.
Yes.
We're keeping the ball rolling, man. Let's go.
Yeah, halftime hits, and I can watch the first 12 minutes of the next game because the other one's on halftime, and then from there I can go split screen after that. So I think it'd be easier. I'm with you. I think that they should make some tweaks like Purdue basketball should, but drafts, dude. The draft's a month away, and it's really weird. I don't feel like anyone's really talking about it. And I think part of it is the excitement of March Madness. Everyone's new favorite thing to do is just complain about March Madness for some reason. We don't have enough upsets. A 9 seed just made a run to the Elite Eight. All right, so shut up with all that. But I've been thinking about the draft. I'm looking forward to the disappointment that Chris Ballard delivers us on draft night, and I've got a lot of thoughts on it. I'm going to give you some brief thoughts on the Colts draft that's coming up here in about a month when we come back in about 3 minutes.
It's in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith. Maybe you're listening on the app, the Indy Sports Ticket app. Maybe you're listening on the website, IndySportsTicket.com. Maybe you're listening on 1430 AM. I don't know how you're listening. Either way, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. What is, to me, I think the thing that I am looking forward to the most in terms of like shows that I'm going to get to do now that I'm back are all of the Chris Ballard focused ones. Like he sat down with Kay Adams yesterday, and we're probably going to have some of the audio from that for you tomorrow. But I was thinking about the draft, and I love draft time because there's such an obvious divide between Colts fans, like the people who are like Chris Ballard until the day we die. Those are also called media people. And then you have everybody else. It's like, why is this guy still here? And I was thinking about the draft and the way that Chris Ballard kind of goes about it. And this is kind of what I came up with. So tonight, my wife and I, we're hosting some friends, and she's going to make my favorite food, Papa Seed chicken. It's so good, right? She's going to make that for dinner. We're going to have some. We're going to share some with the people that are coming. And let's say that she sent me a list of all the ingredients that she needed tonight for dinner. Okay. And she said, hey, Jonathan, on your way home, can you stop by Aldi and grab all these things? And I said, absolutely. So you need like chicken and cream of chicken and Ritz crackers and poppy seed. All those things are what you need to make this dish. And if I walked through the door with olives, black licorice, and mozzarella cheese, I'm going to go out on a limb and say she wouldn't be very happy with me.
Do better.
Yeah. And she'd be like, Jonathan, where are the poppy seeds? Where's the chicken? Where's everything we need to make this dish? And if I looked at her and said, babe, I know you're mad at me, but these olives were half off. The mozzarella cheese was buy one, get one free, so I bought two. And the licorice was 75% off. This normally would have cost us like $20. I got it all for $7. Like that's just too much value for me to pass on. And guess what? That wouldn't calm her down at all. My wife's really nice, so she wouldn't call me stupid, but she would be upset because we needed specific things to make dinner, not valuable things. And drafting in the NFL should work the exact same way. The Colts need a linebacker at some point in this draft. Okay, they have the 47th pick, 47th overall pick, 15th pick in the second round. If there's a good linebacker available who isn't projected to go until like 60th, and the Colts can't trade back, please just take that guy anyway. Instead of being like, oh, this guy was supposed to go 35th. He fell to 47th. Like we already have, two really good offensive guards, but there's just too much value there. We have to take him. Don't do that. Take the guy you need. Because right now, the Colts desperately need good players. Like right now, yesterday, if Chris Ballard wants to do his ultimate goal, which is keep his job, he has to acquire good players immediately. And it shouldn't matter if they're drafting that player that they need and that they think is going to be a good player, if they take him 13 picks too early. I promise you, if he's really good, nobody is going to care. And right now, they have a lot of needs. They need a linebacker. Since they traded Zaire Franklin to Green Bay. Let's be honest, they would have needed one anyway because Zaire Franklin's not very good at football. But trading him only amplifies that need. That's just the simple reality of it. They need a right tackle. Jalen Travis probably going to be the guy that they're going to want to start at right tackle. At a minimum, they need depth at the position since Braden Smith left. They traded Zaire Franklin for Colby Wooden from the Packers. Solid defensive tackle. Even with that addition, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart aren't getting any younger. Who knows what DeForest Buckner's body is going to tell him on Sundays? They need more depth there. They also still need help at edge rusher, despite all the picks that they've already sunk into that position. They also need a wide receiver who can play on the outside. Nick Westbrook-Akine, you don't even know who that is, isn't who you want lining up opposite of Alec Pierce. Nick Westbrook-Akine played for the Miami Dolphins last year. If you're unaware, I grew up a Dolphins fan. Still have a soft spot for them, even though they suck. He had 11 receptions last year. I don't think you want that guy to be your starting wide receiver. I don't care that he played at IU. I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people have like a soft spot for him. Oh, man, the guy played for IU. Oh, yeah. Let's also remember, he played for IU when they sucked. Let's just keep that in mind, okay? Everyone loves Ashton Doolin. He has 40 career receptions. His rookie year was in 2019. He's not a starting wide receiver in the NFL. Okay, great special teams player, not a starting wide receiver. Part of why Alec Pierce was able to be as good as he was last year is because of the other weapons. You had to pay attention to Michael Pittman Jr. or Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. That opens up Alec Pierce. But if you only have one real threat at wide receiver, it makes it a lot easier to cover Alec Pierce. And that impacts his ability to beat teams deep and do the things that he does well. It is amazing to me how we are headed into year 10 of Chris Ballard. And there are still all these issues. And that's without mentioning that their starting quarterback for the year is coming off a torn Achilles and was trending downward the more and more that he played. I just, oh my gosh. Jeez Louise. I can't. Anyway, that's my little Colts rant for the day. Tyler Fox, who tweeted at me, it's a valid point. Tyler Fox says, love you, brother. But this week in Indy is the Final Four, the NIT Final Four. You have all summer to talk about the bum Colts. It's a very, very valid point. Okay? It is. All right. So the Final Four, it is here. I am excited. And there's a part of me, though, and we're going to talk to Aaron Torres about this here in about 10 minutes when he joins the show. There is a part of me that is like, I'm looking forward to it, but I feel like I'm looking more forward to Arizona versus Michigan than I am anything else, because those are, I think, pretty clearly the two best teams left, and that is not a slight at Illinois. That is not a slight at that's not a slight at Illinois. That is not a slight at UConn. I just think anyone who's watched the tournament and watched Arizona mop up Arkansas and Purdue and watched Michigan just run everybody over, I think everyone kind of knows, like, yeah, these two teams are clearly the best. And I think the winner of that game is going to win the national title. That is part of what makes the NCAA tournament so freaking awesome, though. Because I could be totally wrong. UConn could, beat Illinois. I don't know if that's my pick yet, but, we'll see. They could beat Illinois and then shoot, 15 or 25 from three and beat Arizona or Michigan or whoever it ends up being. Okay, but I do think that the thing that I'm most interested in watching with the Final Four in that Arizona versus Michigan game. Also, if you have thoughts on the game, you can call in at 317-228-1430. I'm interested to see how Arizona's physicality is met by the size of Michigan. Because if you watched Arizona play against Purdue, they play through your chest. Like, they're getting the ball, and you know that they're going to the rim. And they're bigger and stronger than a lot of the teams that they play. And so they get to the rim. and they score. The issue is you're going to play against Michigan, who's got Mara just kind of lurking. I believe he was third in the NCAA this year in blocks per game. And, like, you're not playing through that guy's chest. Michigan they were probably the biggest team in college basketball this year. Like, they've got one little point guard who's like 6'2". Everyone else is like 6'5" and up. And so I'm intrigued to see how Arizona goes about dealing with the size of Michigan, given that they want to get to the rim and they have a tendency to just kind of power through people. So I'm really intrigued by that. UConn versus Illinois, two great offensive teams. Two teams that have a ton of shooting. They're both great around the rim. They both rebound really well. This game, I think, is going to come down to who can kind of turn the screws a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. I'm still torn on who's going to do that. Both teams are incredibly tough. They both compete at a really high level on the defensive end of the floor. I'm still wrestling with who I like in the game. But ultimately, I think that it's going to be a great NCAA Final Four, and I can't wait for it. Chris, what are your thoughts on the Final Four?
Oh, man, it's been exciting up to this point. I really like in the city that they've put, all the tournaments kind of like center here, championship kind of weekend kind of feel. But in that, you're absolutely right. Arizona, Michigan are going to be two monsters, and I think whoever comes out of that game takes it all. Although I think UConn over Illinois and giving either one of those teams is our outlook in my view.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you had to pick one team to win it all right now, who would you take?
Probably Arizona. It was initially Florida, not because of the boss, but Florida looked tough. And after the tournament started, I was like, I don't think they have a back-to-back in them. So I was looking at Arizona, and I already knew, I kind of had a feeling that Purdue wasn't going to get past them. They're too fast, too tough, and I think Arizona is our championship.
That's how does your bracket look? I'm sure it's all busted, but like, do you have anyone who's still alive? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. But if we're talking about, what's set up on ESPN and percentage, I think I'm about 94%. I'm about, kind of upper tier of the third of the country, if you wanted to put it that way. But like I said, I picked Florida. They're out of it. I did pick Arizona over Purdue, and I did pick Illinois to make the Final Four. I know that, but I'd have to look at it.
Okay. I picked Arizona and Michigan to make the Final Four. Those are the only two that I got right, and I picked Arizona to win the whole thing. So we will see how it goes.
How far did you have Duke going?
I had them losing to St. John's.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people did. I had them beating St. John's.
They should have, but, hey, it's fine. Aaron Torres joining the show here in about 5 minutes with the Final Four coming to town. There's so many things going on downtown. And if you want a list of those things, if you go to indysportsticket.com and you go to events, you can click on a little tab that says Final Four Fan Hub, and it's got a list of all of the things that are going on. It's got details like Post Malone, he's coming to town. There's a ton of like free concerts and things. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want all the information on what's going on downtown, indysportsticket.com, and you can check out the little events tab there. So Aaron Torres, he's joining the show next. We'll talk Purdue. We'll talk Final Four. We'll probably talk a little bit about the North Carolina job and so on. It is a great time to be a basketball fan in Indy. Not only do we have the NCAA March Madness Final Four, but we've also got the NIT Final Four going on at Hinkle. So, again, no better time to be a basketball fan in Indiana. Aaron Torres joining the show here in about 4 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. The Indy Sports Ticket app, 1430 AM. However you're listening, it is greatly appreciated. If you're wondering where Dan is, no, this is not some April Fool's joke. It is the Real Jonathan Smith Show going forward. If you want to know why Dan isn't here, you can go listen to his show from yesterday, wherever you get your podcast. We are joined now by Aaron Torres from Fox Sports Radio, and the Aaron Torres podcast does an excellent job all year of covering college basketball. This is his time to shine. Aaron, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, Jonathan. How you doing, man? I mean, we don't have to get into why Dan isn't here, but congrats on your success. And sounds like the folks in Indy are going to be hearing a lot more from you, man. I'm happy for your success, and I know Dan's going to kill it as well in his next venture, but happy to see you have success, man.
I appreciate it. You're the first guest ever on for this time slot, at least. So the honor's all yours, I guess.
Hopefully I don't say anything to make sure that I'm the last guest. I'll be careful. I won't say anything too mean about Purdue or Indiana, I promise.
I mean, I already kind of did that. So I actually wanted to open with a question for you about Purdue. So, Matt Painter's been at Purdue for 21 years, and so you can't say anything bad about him because he's also an excellent coach. But I feel like every March, I feel like Purdue runs into the same issue. I feel like they lose because they're just not athletic enough. Like watching them play against Arizona, they couldn't really stay in front of the Arizona guards. All of the bigs for Arizona were bigger and more athletic. That is not a great combination if you're guarding those guys. I'm just kind of curious, like, are you noticing the same thing year in and year out? And if you are, at what point does Matt Painter maybe need to tweak his philosophy on the kinds of players that he brings in?
It's a good question. I think it's a little unfair, and I'll tell you why. And Jonathan, I know you know the Arkansas program well. Because I think there was a lot on Thursday night going into the Elite Eight of, another Cal loss, and he's got another lottery pick, and it's like, then you see Arizona do what they did to Purdue specifically in the second half, and you say, oh, maybe it wasn't a Cal thing. Maybe it wasn't an Arkansas thing. Maybe it wasn't a Darius Acuff thing. Maybe Arizona's just that good. And so, listen, I do think that, because I think whenever you lose to end the season, and even when you win to end the season in the very rare instance, you should always be evaluating what can we be doing better. But when you are talking about a team that, one, consistently wins in the regular season, and then two, one half away from going to two Final Fours in 3 years. And so let's play a little game of what if is, somehow Purdue holds on in the second half. Somehow Braylon Mullen's shot rims out. Now we're talking about Purdue 2 Final Fours in 3 years. Maybe they are the preeminent program in college basketball, even if they haven't won a title as of yet. So I think it's a little bit overblown. And again, I think part of it too is, you ran into Arizona in the Elite Eight, which just might be the best team. And maybe if you were in the same region as Duke, if you were in the same region as Florida, things are different, even as a 2 seed. And so it gets into conversations about what you do in the regular season and all that. But I don't know that I would be sounding the alarm bells, because 2 of the last 3 years, you have had a team either good enough or did get to a Final Four, and you just ran into what might be the best team in college basketball in that specific season.
That is a completely fair point. And I didn't want to do the survey of one thing. I just feel like, I've been in Indy for 5 years, so maybe I don't have a large enough scope of Purdue basketball over the full 20, but I always feel like that is the thing that I'm worried about with Purdue. And go ahead.
If can I jump back in?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
I'm going to counter my own point and say that I do think it's fair, because they were a tip-in away from potentially losing to an 11 seed Texas that was super athletic. And, if Tremont Mark doesn't get hurt, does that game go different? By the way, they trailed Miami at halftime, so it's not like they overwhelmed them with size or athleticism, a 7 seed. So maybe there is more to it. And I think maybe I'm looking too much through the lens of you don't want to pin everything on how the season ended, but the more that I think about it, I think it might be a valid point, because really from essentially the minute the tournament started outside of the Queens game, everything was a little bit of a battle for Purdue, and they did get to the Elite Eight, and they did lose to Arizona. But again, a couple shots go a couple different ways. Maybe they're out in the round of 32, and we're having a completely different conversation about them.
Joined by Aaron Torres of Fox Sports Radio and the Aaron Torres podcast, talking about the Final Four. I know you're flying here from LA. What time did you get to the airport with all the TSA stuff?
I'll be leaving for the airport in about an hour, man. So, we'll see what happens.
Okay. I hope that you can get here. You mentioned Arizona.
I hope so too.
Hey, man.
I hope so too.
You mentioned Arizona. I think they're an absolute wagon right now. Michigan, you can say the same thing about them. I think the one thing about that game that I'm really curious to see, like whenever you watch Arizona, I think the thing that pops out the most is just their physicality on offense. And I think the thing with Michigan that pops out is just their overwhelming size. And like Arizona's obviously a very big team as well. Not as big as Michigan, though. How do you think their physicality is going to match up against the Michigan team that has, I believe, the nation's third leading shot blocker in Mara and just a lot of positional size?
It's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think to me, and this is why Arizona's been my pick for the championship, really dating back to like mid-February when they started beating Houston at Houston, and really, essentially, I keep saying this about Arizona. They really haven't played a bad game all year, which is kind of crazy to think about. Their two losses were at Fog Allen by 3 points and to Texas Tech in overtime. So they really haven't played a terrible game all year. And I actually don't really look as much at the low post stuff, because I think it's pretty net neutral. Now you can, is Krivas better than Mara? Is Mara better than Krivas? Is Koa Pete better than Merez John? We can play that game, but I don't think there's any doubt the best guard on the court is Braden Burries from an NBA perspective, and the best probably college basketball player maybe on the entire court is Jaden Bradley. And so to me, that's more the X factor is Michigan does move the ball very well. The offense hums, but I also think that Arizona is one of the few teams that physically can match up with Michigan. And so I think when you have, it's almost like when Michigan played Duke in whatever it was, mid to late February, again, Duke was one of the few teams that could physically match up with Michigan in the front court, and it came down to the back court. And on that specific day, Duke was better. So I could go on and on. But yeah, one thing I will say, and I think it's a good point by you, Jonathan, is like how the game is reffed, because, listen, we've all been in the games. Like when you have that many big bodies in that condensed of a space, literally every play you could call a foul on. And I certainly hope they don't, and I don't think that they will. But, I do think that a more physical game does favor Arizona. But I also do think whoever wins and loses that game is, can Michigan get enough from their backcourt, or conversely, can they slow down an Arizona backcourt, which has been so awesome all year?
It has been. And it's, like you said, it's just a fascinating matchup. And my favorite thing whenever I listen to people talk about Arizona is I'll hear people say they can't shoot threes, which is just incorrect. They just don't take them.
Yes, correct.
And
correct. That's a big difference that a lot of people don't understand. Keep going. Go ahead.
Yes, And so I'm interested to see if we see them take a few more. And I think a lot of it is really going to depend on how the officials officiate the game. Because like when you go back to when they beat Arkansas and Purdue, like bigs got in foul trouble pretty quickly. I remember, being an Arkansas fan, like being like, man, like I wish we had two more bodies. If the game is, it is officiated in a little more kind of ticky-tack manner, do you think Michigan has the depth with their bigs to kind of withstand that?
Yeah, I think, again, I think in that case, it would come down to a lot of what I said is if it becomes a guard-oriented game, I think it would favor Arizona. Listen, I'll say this, and I'm a UConn alum. I actually think it's a terrible matchup for UConn. I think Illinois, I actually think they're going to win. And I think Illinois is capable of beating either team. But what I will say is that I am of the belief of a lot of people, which is that Arizona-Michigan is the de facto national championship game. And so it's going to come down to all these things. It's going to come down to, again, to your point, Arizona doesn't take a lot of threes. It doesn't mean they don't hit them. Michigan can be spotty from behind the three-point line. And then again, who does the whistle favor? Does the whistle favor anybody in the paint? I mean, I just think those are the X factors. And, we could talk about hypotheticals of what if and what not. I mean, it's a 1.5 point spread the last that I saw, meaning that it's a bucket either way. So, I mean, take any close game that you've ever seen. It's going to come down to a couple things. And I'll just, to not beat around the bush, I should say, I do like Arizona because the guards are just a little bit better and I trust them a little bit more in big moments. I'll say this, Jonathan, I was one when LJ Kaysen got hurt for Michigan, and for people who don't know the name, he was the backup point. He was basically the first guard off the bench, and he could play either position. He could play with Elliot Cadeau off the ball. He could handle the ball. When he got hurt, I kind of thought it was a little bit of an overblown narrative of, how much are they really going to miss him? I do think they miss him. Now, I don't think it's been enough to cost them, right? I mean, they're on the final stage, they're on the biggest stage in the Final Four, but I also don't think it changes the fact that I think this game's going to come down to a million little things, in my opinion, more than one big thing. And I think that's what's going to be fascinating about this game to just kind of consume for all of us this coming weekend.
Joined by Aaron Torres from the Aaron Torres podcast. You should also subscribe to his YouTube page. Just go search for Aaron Torres. You can also hear him on the weekends on Fox Sports Radio. You mentioned that you thought that this was a bad matchup for UConn playing against Illinois. Why do you think that?
Illinois is the team, and I try to watch as much of everyone as I can. And it was really that second game against VCU that it just hit me. Oh, this team is way better than I thought they were. And once I saw them against VCU, I said, they're going to beat Houston and they're going to beat whoever comes out of the other side. And they are going to the Final Four. And we talk about positional size a lot in all of basketball. And it's always, height and wingspan. And I think, you look at, say, Duke last year where every starter was like 6'5" or bigger, plus wingspan, whatever. Illinois size is different than everybody else's in they just got big dudes that don't let you get where you want to go on the floor. And it's like, I just go back to the VCU game where these VCU guards they're so athletic and they're so used to getting to the spot that they want to get to. And all of a sudden there's a 6'8", 260-pound dude just in their way. And then, oh, by the way, if you get by him, there's 7'2" Zvonimir Ivisic blocking your shot off the window. By the way, it was kind of the same with Iowa, right? Iowa got up 12-2 in that game, was totally prepared and just wore down over the course of the game. And so with UConn, I actually think they've kind of overachieved to get here, which is weird to say. Preseason top 5 team, 30-plus wins. They're pretty limited in the front court outside of Terrace Reed. And obviously we all watched the game on Sunday where 1 for 18 from 3 to start the game. They finished, they made 4 of their last 5, including Braylon Mullins, the iconic shot. But yeah, I think it's a bad matchup. And I think Illinois, frankly, is a tough matchup for everybody. Now, again, Michigan and Arizona are probably 2 of the teams that have the across the board size to deal with them. But I think, again, until you watch them closely, like thing is, Jonathan, like all their guys are big, but all their guys are thick too. Like even Kylan Boswell, he's probably about 205, 210 pounds on the perimeter, and you're trying to get by him and you're just running into a brick wall. And that's kind of who their team is. I'll be curious, obviously, with the media availability this week, if it was intended to build a team this way, or if it was just kind of a byproduct of, recruiting more European players or whatever. I don't know that part, but you just look at them and they are so freaking big and make it so hard for you to get to your spots on the floor.
Joined by Aaron Torres from Fox Sports Radio and the Aaron Torres podcast, talking about the Final Four. You mentioned all the, Eastern European guys that are playing for Illinois. They're like all over the place in this Final Four. And we talk about how NIL is going to impact the sport. And we're seeing all these guys from Europe come over. When it comes to the North Carolina head coaching job, do you think that is something that's going to be of a little more importance? Maybe not even just for that job, but as other jobs open up, like finding these head coaches who have connections overseas to bring in some guys who've played against, grown men for a long time?
I think, every place and every coaching staff is going to have a different philosophy. I think more than anything to me, and I've said this consistently, Jonathan, you do need a plan. And I give credit to any coach that comes in with a plan of this is how, you look at you look at John Shire, right? He takes over for Coach K, and you think, oh, he's just going to do it the way Coach K did it. And, I know it's easy to crap on John Shire, this week, but like, he was the first college coach to hire a GM. In other words, somebody who solely focuses on recruiting and NIL and things of that nature. He does things very differently than Coach K, but he came in with a plan, and whether it's right or wrong, he is pursuing it. And so what I will say is, one, I respect anybody who comes in with a plan. But two, what I'll also say is this, is that I think we're quickly about to hit kind of a ceiling on the coach who comes in and just rallies a bunch of money and just throws together a roster strictly because of money. I have already in my conversations, the portal doesn't even open technically for another week. I have heard of, a half a dozen schools that they've just been told, hey, you are not going to have as much money to work with as you did last year. You're going to have to figure it out, if you want to call it on a budget, because, I think it's pretty well known, like Mark Pope at Kentucky is not going to have the budget that he did last year. Now, he may still have $15 million and have a top 10 roster, but it is going to be on a budget relative to what he had. And so why I bring it up is I think it's going to be more important to evaluate more than ever before, and to get kind of the spectrum of guys that are, whether it's a high school player, whether it's a European player, guys that you can develop within your program, and I'll be quick on this, Jonathan. I know I'm all over the place, but
you're good.
One, like I know they didn't have a great tournament, but you look at Florida, like I am so impressed with Todd Golden, Tommy Hawk and Alex Condon, two, probably future first round picks. They were sub 150 recruits in their high school class. In other words, they were not ranked among the top 150 players in their high school class. Ruben Chinyelu, one of the best big men in college basketball, averaged 5-5 at Washington State before he transferred in. And so I just bring it up because I just think that if you can't identify and develop, I think it's going to be really hard for you. And so even at North Carolina, yes, this year I'm sure they'll raise whatever, if it's Billy Donovan, if it's whoever, and he says, I'm going to need 10 or 12 or $15 million to put a roster together, they will find a way to get him that money. But if it's year 2, year 3, year 4, at some point it is still going to be about evaluation and development. And so I think more than anything with the North Carolina situation, it can't just be I'm going to North Carolina because they have double the NIL that I did at my previous stop, because eventually that money is going to dry up.
It will eventually, and the NIL stuff is just fascinating because, like you said, like you can have, and I don't know if Kentucky really had $22 million this year or not, but it can go from 22 to 15, and then you have to figure all that out. Who would you like to see take the North Carolina job, and who do you think will actually get it?
Let me put it this way. I am of the belief that Tommy Lloyd is not a candidate. That is my personal opinion. So does that make Billy Donovan a candidate? Not necessarily. I will say I do think, in my personal opinion, that that a lot of stuff is lining up where it would make sense for Billy Donovan to be the next head coach in North Carolina. You follow the NBA closer than I do, Jonathan. I'll defer to you if, would the Bulls move off of them? I know they're a historically kind of cheap organization, but, he's got the college pedigree. He's 60 years old, which I know to young guys like you sounds old, Jonathan, but, when Pitino's doing it in his 70s and Izzo's doing it in his 70s, Billy Donovan, if he wants to, can do it in his 60s. And, I don't think he would come back to college just to keep coaching. Like, if this was the Boston College job or LSU, I don't think, LSU called Billy Donovan before they called Will Wade. I think it would have to be a very specific job, probably North Carolina or Kentucky or one of those type jobs to actually get him interested. And again, I don't, by the time I was really covering college hoops, he was essentially out of it. So I'm not going to pretend that I know how Billy Donovan thinks and I have this 30-year track record with him. I'm just saying, as long as he wants to keep coaching, it feels almost certain it won't be in the NBA. And again, a lot of things are lining up nicely for him to be the North Carolina coach if that's what he wants.
Joined by Aaron Torres from Fox Sports Radio and the Aaron Torres podcast, talking about the Final Four, the North Carolina job, Purdue, all sorts of stuff. I don't know what the Bulls are going to do with him. I think he has the best job in the NBA because they don't really care what he does.
Sure.
It's kind of amazing, but that's a rant for another time. Obviously, I think North Carolina is the best job in college basketball. If there's any job he would come back for, it would obviously be that one. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know what he's going to do. He's been gone for like 8 years now. And so part of me feels like if he was going to come back, it probably would have already happened. The Kentucky job was open a couple years ago. I don't know if they reached out to him or not. I'm assuming they did because they're Kentucky, but we'll see on that. Last thing for you, Aaron, and I will let you go. You talked earlier about the importance of when these new coaches get hired, how they have to have a plan. Year one for Coach DeVries at IU didn't go very well. What do you think the plan needs to be for him going forward to turn this thing around? Because, we've seen Ben McCollum in year one go to the Elite Eight at Iowa. Todd Golden turned things around at Florida really quickly. And so we're seeing these quick turnarounds. And, he should have the resources needed. What do you think needs to change in Bloomington for them to get back on track?
It's a great question. I'd be curious what the former co-host in this slot, has to say about that. I know he's happy they're not dancing on TikTok anymore, so that's a plus, I guess.
That is a plus.
So I just, as somebody who covers this stuff, and there are probably 200 names in the portal every single year that I know, and I'm like, oh, that'll be a good fit there, that won't be a good fit there. I just felt like there were just a lot of guys that were just like, outside of Lamar Wilkerson, even during the portal process, and obviously Tucker DeVries, that's a little bit different. It was kind of like, oh, I'm not really familiar with him, or, oh, you turn on the film and he's a couple inches too short to compete in the Big Ten. I don't know if misevaluation is the right word, but, I do still think it comes down to like difference makers, right? Just look at these four teams in the Final Four, and I'm not going to go through every roster, but like Arizona legitimately has like 6 players who could play in the NBA. Now, to the conversations that you and I have had over the course of this call, some of them have been there 3 years. Jaden Bradley was developed within the program. Some of them like Braden Burries are true one and done. But like they have NBA players. Michigan obviously brought a bunch in through the portal. But I just bring it up because all of these teams, at the end of the day, UConn probably has 4 players that are going to play in the NBA. Now, they might not be superstars, but like Alex Caravan is going to be on an NBA roster this offseason and will probably get minutes at some point, even if it's as one of the last guys off the bench. So I just bring it up because I just think you need more talent. And I do think scheme matters and this matters and that matters. I just don't think you had enough talent this year. So it'll be interesting to see how they identify and who they identify, because I think year one left a lot to be desired.
It certainly did. Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we can get you back on again soon, maybe after the national title games sometime next week. Are you hosting any events or anything like that when you're here in Indy?
Dude, I wish I could tell you, because I'm actually literally about to send a text as soon as we get off the phone. I'll let you know so you can share with your audience. We're working on maybe something for Sunday, but would love to have some of your listeners come by. Still trying to figure all that out. I will be doing my show, Jags Crossing, at IU Indy tomorrow. Anyone's welcome to stop by and say hi if you want to, but that'll be about 5 Eastern time. But yeah, Sunday's what we're trying to do, the big thing. So thank you, Jonathan. I got to run because I got to go to the airport here in about 10 minutes. Love you. Bye.
All right, man. See you. That is Aaron Torres. Love you too, Aaron. I don't know if you hear him say love you there at the end.
I heard it.
Okay. All right. I would make sure I wasn't crazy. That is Aaron Torres. Check him out on X at Aaron Torres. Also check out his podcast as well. More Final Four discussion here in about 3 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're listening on X, __ Jonathan Smith to watch me there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Oh, man, it's so good to be back. It's so good to be back. And, Dan and I, whenever I was producing Chris, I'm sure he said the same thing to you. The best part of the show is what happens off the air. It's like, it's all the conversations that happen in the studio.
I wish it was commercial free sometimes so you guys could see what happens while we're at break.
Chris, your radio name's Oreo?
Yeah, it's been my nickname since middle school. And I actually tried to get rid of it because I'm like older now and I think I'm too mature for a nickname, but it just never went away and that's what I've always been.
It just means you're cool.
Yeah.
Only cool people have nicknames. Why is it Oreo? What happened?
All right. So it's not anything that really happened. Back in middle school, once people started figuring out that I was mixed, right? With black and white, whatever. And my last name is White. So before it was Oreo, people called me Chris Black and White, right?
Oh, jeez. That's so much worse.
Yeah, I know. Imagine
terrible.
going through 7th grade at middle school and kids picking on you just because of your name or whatever. I'm sure it happens to everybody. But eventually it became Oreo because of the obvious, and it just kind of stuck. So in high school, I had the Oreo show. And then I joined bands. And it was like, here's our singer Oreo. And, back in the day when I was with Stuck and Gunner, the old X103 days, then it was Oreo then. So it just kind of stuck. And now it's, it's easier than Chris. There's so many Chris's in the world. It's just Oreo nowadays.
Okay. I like it.
Nothing bad about it. It's just a name that never went away.
All right. And you just rolled with it. You want to know what my nickname in middle school was?
Let's hear it.
The Hair Raiser.
The Hair Raiser?
I've got incredibly hairy legs. And so, so they would call me the Hair Raiser. And, man, like when you're in middle school, you just kind of like say, okay. And you, all right, I guess that's my nickname now.
So creative, these kids, right?
Dude, yeah, the Hair Raiser. I'll never forget it, man. The day it happened, I wore khaki shorts to school like we were supposed to. And everyone, there's someone points and everybody looks. It's like, oh, Jonathan has really hairy legs. So now he is known as the Hair Raiser.
When's the last time you were called that? Do you go by that now?
No, don't go by that now.
Like it's not the Hair Raiser show?
When I was in 8th grade, like I graduated middle school, if you can graduate middle school. And when I went to high school, I went to a different high school. So I went to Sylvan Hills Middle, then went to Jacksonville High School, and so left that nickname in the past.
Fair
Hallelujah.
Enough. Fair enough.
That's a brutal one.
I'm not saying, like maybe your wife calls you this now or might.
Nope, she doesn't call me that. She calls me Jonathan.
All right.
And that works really well for me. But yeah, man. So I was curious. You're like, Oreo. I was like, oh.
Hey,
man.
there are worse things in the world, and I know we both know Dan was probably not going to call me Oreo.
Oh, no.
That's okay. It's not something that bothers me. I'm good with it.
Yeah, nicknames are just weird, man. Like the way that they come up and the way that they happen. Like there's usually some good story behind it. Mine's not. I just have hairy legs. So, it's all good. It's all good. So, Volter on X tweeted at me saying it's okay to admit DeVries isn't the guy and not getting Dusty May set the program back further years. Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020. I still like DeVries. I think 1 year is a little quick to be like, hey man, I don't think you're the guy. You got to give him at least one more year. We need to see some sort of improvement, make the tournament, win a game, do that, and then I think everyone will kind of, ease up a little bit. We got Buzzard on the line. What's going on, Buzzard? How are you?
Hey, I'm really good. So you're not going to change the name to the Hair Raiser and Oreo show?
We're not.
We are now. I'm just kidding.
I mean, if you want to call it that, that's fine.
Put it on a bumper sticker.
That would be like explaining to people why it's called the Real Jonathan Smith Show now, like takes me some time.
Yeah.
if we called it the Hair Raiser and Oreo show, that would take me forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I was blessed with the name of John Wayne Buzzard. Actually my real name. So it was always the Duke was always my like little league baseball nickname or whatever. So
that's cool though.
That's
That's way
awesome.
cooler
Yeah.
than Oreo or the Hair Raiser.
You were set for life, my friend.
Yeah, my mom second guessed that name. My dad's like, "Now we're rolling with it. That's what we're going with." So, you were talking about Purdue earlier.
Yeah.
Purdue is the epitome of the team that is always one player away. And you talk about that in the pros a lot. We're like, they're just one player away. Let's hit the trade deadline. Purdue is just always that one player away. Even going back to like Glenn Robinson, you had Conzo Marty, you had some people, but you didn't have another stud to go along with. The same way with that. And Braden Smith's great. He was a good complement player to Zach Edey, and they played well together. But Matt Painter is so good at having his teams hit the ceiling with who they have. When I watch Arizona and when I watch Michigan play, they are just loaded with dudes. That's the top two teams.
Yeah.
Hurley does great with his teams. When he won the national tournament, it was loaded. Purdue's just one player. He has to win the transfer portal with his one or two. And if he doesn't, and he goes with his homegrown kids, he just doesn't get there.
He doesn't, and I thought that the Oster Cluff edition was really good. And I mean, Matt Painter said it himself. You know, he felt like that was a Lance Jones level addition. And I don't know, I don't think he was quite that good, but you know, that's fine. I thought losing Camden Heide in the portal last year was a really big deal because it's just nice to have a 6'7" guy who's really athletic. I felt like they were missing that this year. Do you feel like a guy like Cam Heide could have made? I don't know if Cam Heide's the difference between beating Arizona or not, but maybe they're a 2 seed or they were a 2 seed. Maybe they're a 1 seed instead, and they don't have to worry about Arizona until the Final Four.
Oh, that definitely showed. They didn't have the athletic perimeter defense. Braden was 1,000 times better on defense this year. He played fantastic. Lawyer's fine on defense. But, yeah, they needed another Heide for the matchups, and for this moment was when they needed Cam Heide. So, you know, and that was just unfortunate they don't have him. But they just needed, like I said, another guy. So they needed another stud wing defender to go along with what they had just to keep people out. You know, that was pretty much it. But, you know, like Painter does so well with adjusting and recruiting, and I think he'll get there. But I think he's seen what Dusty May has done as far as with what because they're a ginormous team. And yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, Purdue just said they don't have room for error. Michigan has room for error. Arizona has room for error because they are just so big. And Arizona, with being the great rebounding team that they are, they're the number 2 rebounding team in the country. There's no second chances. And Purdue actually rebounded well against them. So Painter just has to not only hit, but just win the lottery like what he did with Edey. So, but that wasn't a transfer. So just develop, win the transfer lottery, you know, and hopefully they get there. But I am a long suffering Purdue fan of just watching this. But at least it wasn't a Arkansas Little Rock loss. It wasn't a North Texas loss. It wasn't. I can keep going with the tragic losses, but I think they played. They're overranked at the beginning. They played above their potential. He's got to hit. So, and he will.
He will. He's still a really good coach. Buzzard, thanks for the call. Yeah, Matt Painter.
From you again, John. See you, man.
Sounds good, man. See you. Yeah, look, Matt Painter's going to be just fine. Like, I'm not saying, when I was talking earlier, they don't need to like overhaul their roster. I just think like when they brought in Lance Jones, like that, like, he was an athletic, quick guard. Like, I think when people think athletic, we think how high can you jump, which is obviously part of being athletic, but it's also your ability to change direction and get by guys and do those things. And Lance Jones could do that. I think they just need a little bit more of that in their lineups. But again, Matt Painter's way, way, way smarter than I am, if you didn't know that already. And so, yeah, I think Purdue, like, they're going to win 25 plus games again. The question is, like, what needs to change for them to get over the hump and finally win that national title. We'll talk more. I got a Colts question that I will answer when we come back here in about 3 minutes. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching the show on X at _ Jonathan Smith to watch the show there. Also follow us at Ticket 1430. Here at some point, we're going to stream the show there instead of on my personal account. So make sure you're following there to make sure that you're able to watch it whenever it does happen. Maybe you're listening on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 a.m. if you're cruising around the Indianapolis area. Timothy Bowman tweeted at me earlier, again, at _ Jonathan Smith. He just asked a really simple question. Is there any reason for optimism for the Colts this fall? And the answer is absolutely not, because the important things that need to change still haven't changed. They still have a bum at quarterback. That's a little harsh. He's not a bum. He's just not one of the guys that you need to make and win playoff games. So there's that. Oh, man. Anyway, so I saw something, and then I realized that it was April Fool's, and I was like, let me stop.
Yeah, the squirrel moment.
I did, man. I was scrolling on X, and Utah State football posted a photo of what their new field is going to be, and it looks like it looks like cow print. So it's white with black spots, and it's like, wait, today is April 1st. It's April Fool's Day. So let me,
There you go.
let's keep that in mind. And what was I even saying? I don't remember what I was saying before. The Colts, yeah, and how they're going to be bad, how there is no hope for them as long as Chris Ballard is sitting in that general manager chair. So, look, if you have a reason to be optimistic, 317-228-1430, feel free to call in. If you don't have a reason to be optimistic and you just want to say what's up, that's totally fine as well. I appreciate all the welcome backs that I've gotten since starting the show. If you're just now tuning in and you're like, where's Dan? Yesterday was Dan's last day. If you want to know why, you can go listen to yesterday's podcast. He does a really good job of explaining what all is going on. So, again, that number, 317-228-1430. You can comment on YouTube or X as well, and we'll talk about it. So, oh, man, the Final Four, it's here. It's in Indy. And I feel like there's just, even like myself, when I sat down last night to kind of prep out the show for today, I feel like so much of my attention was on Michigan and Arizona. And there's like this underlying thing of this is the real national championship game because of how well both of these teams are playing right now. They're just absolute wagons running over everybody. And I'm trying really hard to not get caught up in that and to remember that, like, UConn's in the Final Four for a reason, although I do agree with Aaron Torres, who just joined us, that, they very simply, they've overachieved a little bit this year. Didn't finish the season super strong, got blown out by St. John's a couple of times. It feels like that they've overachieved. They're a 38-footer rimming out away from losing in the Elite Eight, which isn't, that's not a bad season at all, but feels like they've overachieved a little bit. And they're playing against this Illinois team that I just find to be incredibly interesting. And they've got a ton of size. They rebound so well. Like if Iowa could have grabbed just a few more rebounds, they would have had a great chance to be in the Final Four in place of Illinois. And the thing that I find interesting about both of these teams is I love the way that both of these teams run their offense. Like UConn does a really good job of having player movement and ball movement for the full, 30 seconds of the shot clock. Illinois, same thing. And I feel like we're seeing a shift in college basketball where we're seeing this motion offense really make a push to come back. Because when you look at Iowa, same thing. Their ability to just continuously run their offense until they get a great shot is incredible. It's why they play at such a slow pace. It's because it's like this is a good shot, but I bet if we run this for another 10 seconds, we can get a great one. And sure enough, they do. UConn does the same thing. I think that Illinois does the same thing. So on and so forth. We got a question from IU fan 71 over on YouTube saying, McCollum better coach than DeVries with a question mark. The answer is absolutely. Like, what's DeVries done? Taken Drake to the NCAA tournament one time and then missed the NCAA tournament at West Virginia, and then he missed the NCAA tournament at IU. So, yeah, come on. Let's ask some better questions. I'm just kidding, IU fan. Obviously. I don't think there's any question because when you're the coach at IU, like the money is there. The investment is there. And ultimately, that's the ultimate thing, I think, in college sports, the investment and the coach. And if you don't make the tournament, man, it's a coach thing. And now they are bringing in a GM. I'm forgetting his name. Recently coached with or was a part of the Pacers front office. That'll help. Just having guys who can go out and do a lot of the scouting for you because there's guys who are playing at the mid-major level right now. They're playing overseas right now that if you're a head coach and you're playing on Tuesday night and they also play on Tuesday night and then you're playing again on Saturday and you got to put together practice plans and then get ready for, your game on Saturday. You're not able to be like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to take 4 hours and scour this website that has all these different guys on it and see if any of them are any good. Like, it's a lot to ask of a coach. So I think bringing in the GM should do wonders for Indiana basketball. Tyler Fox saying, I don't think you can say UConn is overachieved given Hurley as the coach. They are 33-5. It's a valid point. But like when you've seen them play, they don't look like a team that should have gone 33-5. I think that's really more so of what my take is. It's a lot of narrow wins. Their offense, like they run the same stuff, but like the shooting isn't as good. I don't feel like they're as deep as normal, especially in their front court. And maybe this is just UConn fatigue of seeing them go back-to-back and absolutely dominate everybody when they went back-to-back. Maybe that's part of why I feel this way. It's just because I'm used to seeing them trounce everybody as of late. But ultimately, I think of the four Final Four teams, they are the lesser of the four. Whereas I think that when you look at, like, I just feel like they're a step below Illinois and Michigan and Arizona. So, yeah, that East region was really interesting just because, like, there were a lot of good coaches in that region. You know, John Shire, Tom Izzo, Pitino, obviously Hurley, and it didn't feel like a super strong region, which is an interesting thing. So, anyway, my thoughts on UConn right there. Let me look here. Oh man, dude, I haven't talked this long in forever. I'm like running out of gas over here.
It's a workout, man.
Dude. I'm like sweating.
You gotta do your crunches before you come in here. Get swole.
I went to the gym yesterday and Monday for the first time in a while, and maybe that's the issue. Maybe I just don't need to go to the gym anymore. That way, I just feel better.
I think it'll be better once the weather stays nicer and we feel a little bit more motivated to go to the gym and stay in shape, right?
That's right. I mean, maybe. We'll see.
Fair enough.
I was thinking about this last night as well. You know, age continues to be a really important thing when it comes to the NCAA tournament and making these runs. Like, I think every team in the country now wants to be like a nightclub, 21 and up only. And the really interesting thing about Arizona is when you look at their team, like they've got like 3 impact freshmen. Koa Pete, obviously being the headlining feature of that. And so I'm really kind of interested to see, like, if Arizona goes on this run and if they're able to win the national title, like, does that tweak the way that people look at freshmen and the way they're coming in now? They obviously need to be a certain way. Like, Koa Pete's thick and can play with, you know, real force. And they obviously do have like a pretty nice blend of older guys as well. Toby Iwaku comes in off the bench. He's a senior. Jaden Bradley, he's a senior. He's their point guard. But like Braden Burries, like when we talk about the backcourt of Arizona, Braden Burries has to be mentioned. He's going to be a lottery pick. And like he's a freshman. And so on. So Karchinov, the kid from Germany, whose name I clearly can't pronounce, another freshman. So I'm really intrigued to see if this run from Arizona tweaks how people look at freshmen going forward. Haas saying in the YouTube chat that he wants Boozer, asking the question of who the Pacers should draft. The answer, I think, is quite simple. They should draft AJ Dybantsa. That dude averaged 25.5, which led college basketball, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He's 6'9" with long arms. He's an incredible athlete. He can dribble. He can pass. He can shoot. Okay, I love that guy so much. If the Pacers have the number 1 overall pick, that is the guy that they should take. He'll slide in, I think, immediately, just because of how athletic he is and how well he runs the floor. Like, can you imagine that 6'9" specimen running alongside Tyrese Halliburton leading the break with like Dybantsa on one wing, Obi Toppin on the other? I think he would fit in really well. And also the really nice thing that I think would be interesting Halliburton's really capable of playing off the ball. If you go back and you watch him play during his time in Sacramento, he played off the ball quite a bit because the Kings had De'Aaron Fox. And so you could even run like some inverted pick and roll. You can allow for Dybantsa to initiate the offense. Occasionally, you're mainly going to want to keep it with Halliburton because that's his superpower, initiating the offense, getting everyone involved with where they need to be. The other thing that I really like about Dybantsa, he's said all the right things in front of the media. For those who didn't follow BYU basketball this year, every other good player on BYU's roster got hurt. So naturally, Dybantsa played 40 minutes a night to give his team a chance. And I know they lost to Texas in the first round, but he had like 35 and scored at will. It was incredible. So not only is he big and long and skilled and athletic, he's competitive and he's tough. He's got a real edge to him. I think he's got a real chance to be a superstar, as does Boozer and as does Peterson and as do all the other great players in this loaded draft class. I just think that his size and the athleticism at his size puts him a tier above the other guys in consideration for the number 1 overall pick. I saw that Haas mentioned that, he wants Boozer, which, like I've seen a lot of people say that they want Boozer. I get it. If the Pacers can't get Dybantsa, that's who I would want for them to take, because I think Boozer is he's like water. He can just kind of slide into whatever crack the Pacers need filled. And, he can shoot it. He can pass. He's not quite as athletic as the other guys. That's the knock on him. Like, you don't have to be a great athlete to be, the 4th best player on a championship team, because that's probably what he would be behind Siakam, Halliburton, and Zubac. So Dybantsa followed by Boozer. Those are the guys that I would want. I wouldn't mind Peterson. Like, if the Pacers ended up taking him, I do think he was really hurt. He averaged 32 minutes per game in his final 10 games. I think he really had some injury issues earlier in the year. He's just not as good of an athlete, and maybe part of that is because, we've seen him hurt all year. I think that's very possible. But I love Boozer's game, but if Dybantsa's on the board, that's the guy that you have to take because of the athleticism. So that's who I think the Pacers should take. Call in 317-228-1430 if you have a disagreement. Make your case. I'm all about it. Those phone lines are open. Here in about 35 minutes, we got Kevin Potts coming on. We're going to talk a little bit of NFL Draft. And when we come back here in about 4 minutes, we got Over the Hump Day.
do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the show there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. That's always a mouthful. I got to find a way to shorten that. If you're tuning in, you're like, huh, that doesn't sound like Dan Dockich. It's because it's not. This is not an April Fool's joke. Yesterday was Dan's last day. If you're curious as to why, it's, you can go listen to his last show yesterday. You can still get that wherever you find your podcast. So, we've been rolling today. We talked Purdue basketball. We talked a little bit of IU basketball. Aaron Torres joined us to talk about, the Final Four going on here in Indy. We talked about the Final Four quite a bit. If you have thoughts, phone lines are open, 317-228-1430. If you have thoughts on the Final Four or the Colts or really anything for that matter, feel free to call in or comment in one of the chats. So we've also talked a little bit about Purdue basketball. And, 5 months ago when I was doing a show here, we did this awesome segment every single Wednesday. Over the Hump Day, in honor of the great Mike Woodson. This is by far the best sounder I've ever made. It's my favorite segment that we do, and we'll do it on every Wednesday from here on out. Here is Over the Hump Day.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo! Hump Day!
No, as the coach, I gotta get us over that hump. I gotta get them comfortable, knowing that you're gonna be in close games and you gotta make plays coming down the home stretch. I mean, in the tournament, we were right there. I just didn't get them over the hump, man. And that's something that I live with every day of my life. Because I truly believe that was the team to really make some noise and get to the finals, and I just couldn't get them over the hump.
Oh, man. The music's, I
like that, dude.
It's so good. It's my favorite one, man. It's the only good one I've ever made.
Good choice.
Seriously.
Good choice. Dan had Best Effort Friday, Hump Day Wednesday from now on
Friday.
With that music. Yeah, best.
When did y'all do that? Or was that like his old show?
No, that was his. It was a thing. Best Effort Friday meant you went home and took care of the wife in an appropriate way.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
all right,
Best Effort
Continue.
Friday. No, that's great. That's hilarious. Oh man, that's so funny. Oh, is Haas still? Is he still firing people on Fridays?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he fired Dan yesterday.
Did you really? That's awesome.
He did the honors.
Haas, if you want to fire somebody on Friday, you were more than welcome to just. If you want to fire someone right now, go right ahead, man. Go right ahead. Tyler Fox, I'm supposed to do over the Hump Day. I got sidetracked, man. It keeps happening. All right, over the Hump Day. Purdue basketball. Purdue still is incapable of winning the big one. The streak continues. They've won more NCAA tournament games than any other program that is yet to win a national title. I love Coach Painter. I've been talking about this on and off all day. Okay, I think everyone loves Coach Painter. He's brilliant. People way smarter than me rave about the sets that he runs and his ability to develop players and all those things. I like him because whenever he talks to the media, he is incredibly honest and he gives real answers. He has been the head coach at Purdue for 21 years now. They made one Final Four. They sadly ran into a juggernaut in UConn the one time that they appeared in the national championship game. When Matt Painter is your head coach, just lock it in, 25 wins a year. John Buzzard called in earlier on this topic and said, Purdue is the team that is always one player away. And I agree with that. I also think that every year that I watch Purdue, I have the same concerns. They always lack athleticism. That seems to be the thing that usually costs them. Okay, like they couldn't stay in front of the Arizona guards. And I love Oscar Clough, and I love Trey Kaufman-Wren, but they were smaller and less athletic than their matchups. You go to that game against Texas, they couldn't stay in front of Tremont Mark. And as Aaron Torres said earlier, if he doesn't get hurt, does Texas beat Purdue? And all of a sudden they're out in the Sweet 16 and they lost to an 11 seed? I think that's very possible. Okay, they didn't have a single player on their roster who could consistently win off the bounce against better defensive teams. They haven't had a guard who could do that since like Carson Edwards, and he was more of a shooter than anything else. Athleticism, look, it's not everything in basketball, but it's important. It's helpful. It is. It's a lot easier to score when you can just drive by people and you don't need a ball screen. When you can give the ball to a guy like Darius Acuff or Cam Boozer or AJ Dybantsa or whoever else, and just say, "Hey, man, go get me a bucket," and then they do. That makes it a lot easier. All those guys are athletic in some way, shape, or form, and I just don't think that Purdue had enough athleticism on their roster again. And I want to be really slow to critique Matt Painter because he's a brilliant coach, way smarter than I am. And the NCAA tournament is a really weird thing where, like Wisconsin lost to High Point. And just because you lose one game doesn't mean that you need to tear everything down and be like, oh, like we lost to High Point, we need to change everything. That's not what I'm saying. My argument for a slight tweak to happen with how Matt Painter goes about constructing his roster is because of years and years and years of what we've seen. Like Aaron Torres did a really good job of highlighting it. They struggled against the athleticism of Texas. They struggled against the athleticism of Miami. When you go back, even when they played UConn, like they didn't have a single guard who could win off the bounce. And that's not fair because UConn was a total unit. I think part of why, when you go back and you look at like the losses to, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and all these things, like teams that have elite athleticism, like Arizona or Arkansas this year or whoever else you want to talk about, all of them, won their games against these smaller schools and they avoided upsets because when you were significantly more athletic than your opponent and you have better players, like you're probably going to win. And Purdue just doesn't really have that. And so at what point does Matt Painter and his recruiting staff put a bigger emphasis on going and getting players that are a little more athletic? I'm not saying undo everything. I'm not saying don't take a guy like Braden Smith because obviously they needed him to win all these games. I just think it should be a slightly larger emphasis than it already is. I think the fact that they lost, Camden Heide in the portal last year, he goes to Texas. Like it would have been a lot easier to defend Koa Pete with a guy who's 6'7" and really athletic like Cam Heide is. Okay, like again, I don't want to overly critique one of the best coaches in the sports in college basketball. But at what point does Matt Painter need to make an adjustment to the types of players that he goes and gets? Okay, he's done a great job of developing players during his time at Purdue. Can we just imagine if he was developing guys that were 6'4" with 40-inch verticals? Those aren't really walking around, but I think you know what I mean. So I would like to see a slight tweak there. I think that would be beneficial for them when they get deeper in the tournament, when they play against these teams like Arizona, who are big and athletic. I think that would be a very, very helpful thing. Shout out to Haas, who agreed to keep calling in and firing people. I really like it. So I've been asked a couple of times to talk about Jaden Ivey and what's going on with him. So I will do so here briefly, okay? So for those who don't know, former Purdue stud Jaden Ivey got cut by the he got cut by the Bulls. Okay. By the way, Kevin Potts, he's joining the show here in about 20 minutes to talk NFL draft. So my thoughts on Jaden Ivey are pretty simple, okay? I don't think that he was released because of what he said, okay? For those who don't know, he went on like a rant where he talked about how like the NBA shouldn't support Pride Month and all these things, all right? He's not the only guy who said that. He's not the only guy who's talked about his faith and all of these things. But here's the thing. How good you are and how big of a headache you're allowed to be go hand in hand. Like, if Michael Jordan on the Bulls said that in the 90s, he would not have been cut. I get it, 90s, a different time, whatever. Place him in today's day and age, he wouldn't have been cut. When Luke Cornett, who plays for the Spurs, wrote an article on how the Atlanta Hawks shouldn't be allowed to have a night honoring Magic City, for those who don't know what that is, it's a strip club. The Spurs didn't cut him. It's the reality of it. Okay, because Luke Cornett is more important to San Antonio and the Spurs and what they're trying to do than what Jaden Ivey is right now to the Chicago Bulls. Here's the other thing that I think is really important and that people are missing. If you got hired at a new place and you're meeting people that you're going to interact with on a daily basis, and they looked at you, and you looked at them and said, hey, man, I'm really curious. Did you fornicate before marriage? Like Jaden Ivey was doing. You can't just ask new people that question. Like, Chris, if I met you for the first time and I looked at you and said, hey, Chris, have you fornicated before marriage? You wouldn't want to talk to me ever again, right?
Professionally, probably not.
Okay. Right?
I see what you're saying.
You can't just do that.
Right.
And then expect for everybody to be okay with it. Like I would feel incredibly awkward. Like, you know, when I took the job at Fifth Third and, you know, the 5 months that I was gone, you know, like if I'd shown up, you know, first day on the job, met my boss, maybe not my boss, but like my coworkers, like, hey man, are you you know, do you get down on the weekends? Oh, you do? You shouldn't do that. Like that's not, it's not going to go over well when you meet new people. And as a guy who is the son of a pastor, for those who don't know, I grew up that way. Like, one of the things that, you know, my dad taught me early was like, you can't preach at people. People don't like that. And from everything that we've seen about this Jaden Ivey story, like, he was preaching at people, and that's really annoying. It's just, like, that's just a fact. That's just how it is. And so, you know, people are going to make this out to be like some anti-Christian thing. I don't think that's what it is. I think that, you know, freedom of speech, Jaden Ivey can say whatever he wants, but just because you can say whatever you want, it doesn't release you from the consequence of saying whatever you want. And sometimes you ask questions that you shouldn't way too early. Like, LeBron James could ask that question, and, you know, some of those Laker reporters would be like, why? You know? And so that's just the reality of it. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with his stance, but when you're meeting new people, maybe don't introduce yourself by saying, hi, I'm Jaden Ivey. Have you fornicated before marriage? Like, you shouldn't. No, like, no one is going to like that. Absolutely nobody. That would be so incredibly awkward. So,
was this a consistent thing, or was this like a
Yes.
one-time intrusive thought,
Yes.
like it fell out kind of thing?
consistent thing. He asked like all the reporters for the Bulls. I just, like, could you imagine? Like, we hire some new guy and he's just like poking his head in all the studios. He's like, hey Jonathan, hey Chris, did you got I'm Brandon. You know, did you guys fornicate before marriage? Like, I'd be like, you got to get on the air right now. Like, come on. And so, but radio's weird in that way. So I just, oh man. And
We'd
like,
have to call Hossie and have him fired
seriously.
immediately.
Yeah. And so I just, yeah, man. And like, the way that social media works, people are only going to clip like one part of it and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have many other thoughts on it. I just think that when you're new, you can't ask questions like that so quickly when you're just not that valuable to the franchise. Jaden Ivey, as a basketball player, let's also just be really honest. He broke his femur, and after he broke his femur, he came back And when he came back, he wasn't the same. Jaden Ivey said it himself. He said he wasn't the same player pre and post femur break, which is a really tough injury to come back from. It's the largest bone in your body. Like, he just hasn't been the same guy. So I just, yeah, man, yeah. Those are my thoughts on it. I'm done with it. I probably won't talk about it anymore. Ross, real quick, we only got a couple of minutes. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, welcome back. Good to hear you again. Just wanted to kind of follow up on some of what you were talking about with Buzzard and Purdue. You know, I kind of thought that after Edie left, I thought, okay, we're going to see a different team. And I'm kind of having those same thoughts of like, okay, we got these shooters, small, whatever. And it seemed like they kind of played the same style as though they still had a Isaac Haas or a Edie or a Caleb Swanigan or what, more through Trey Kaufman Wren. And, that's fine for some matchups and all that. But yeah, I think that it kind of reminded me of watching the UConn championship game where Lawyer and Smith are going up against guys that are, six, Caravan and whoever it looked like a 3A team taking on a 4A team in high school on the wings. And I can't say they haven't tried to get athletic. I know they recruited Badunga hard. I know they've got Swanigan was a top, every now and then. I think just, you're talking about Heidi. I laughed that I think Dan was talking about it one time about athleticism. It's like our most athletic guy of the last several years is a guy coming off 2 ACLs that didn't play for 700 days. And he's our most athletic guy. Like, we're missing something here, but yeah. So, I kind of thought at the beginning of the year being number one was a little bit premature. I think we saw Arizona, Michigan definitely look above the pack, like maybe Purdue and UConn did a couple years ago. Good season, but the last preseason number one, I think, was Hansbrough's 09 Carolina to win. So it's not a good thing to be preseason one, but it's been fun to watch. They're a lot better than when I was there in 01, 05. So we definitely appreciate having them, and we'll see what they can do from there.
Thanks, Ross. I'm with you, man. Like I'm with Ross. Like, they're still a good team, and I think he's right. Like, the style of play was incredibly similar to what we saw with Edie. It's just, no disrespect to Trey Kaufman Wren. The guy was an All-American last year, and some of the voting, not everywhere. But anyway, when you run it with Trey Kaufman Wren versus Zach Edey, it's just not going to be the same. Like, you're still going to win a lot of games because Trey Kaufman Wren's a really good player, but running it through a 6'8" power forward versus a 7'3" bulldozer of a center, your results just aren't going to be the same. So, Ross, thanks for the call. I completely agree with everything that you said. So, coming up here in about 12 minutes, we got Kevin Potts from the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. He's going to join the show. We're going to talk a little bit of Colts. We're going to talk about some of these IU prospects as well. And it's going to be a good time. So Kevin Potts joins the show here in about 10 minutes. And in 4 minutes, we're going to talk about the Colts in the upcoming NFL Draft.
HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around Indianapolis. Today's April 1st, but this is not an April Fool's joke. The last Dan Dockett show was yesterday. If you want to know why Dan left, you can go check out the podcast from yesterday. If you go to @Ticket1430 on X, you can find it there, and you can listen to it. Speaking of April Fools, I'm just telling all these embarrassing stories about myself today. I'm seeing a lot of the worst April Fool's joke ever would be Ballard signing an extension and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think that'd be funny. The panic would be wild. When I was,
they would burn down the stadium.
They would. There'd be riots. It'd be crazy
for sure.
Joe Hogsett would disappear. It'd be nuts, man. So the best April Fool's joke I've ever seen. It happened to me because, of course it did. Do you know what short sheeting somebody's bed is, Chris?
No.
All right, so you know how the fitted sheet and the sheet that you sleep under look the same?
Yeah.
So my brother, what he would do is he would take the sheet that you sleep under and he would fold it in half. And he would take the bottom half and tuck it in and leave the top half up like normal. And so you get in and you go to stretch out your legs and you can't because you're laying on top of it and it's tucked in behind you. It's brutal, man.
It sounds.
He did it to me when I was in fourth grade, so I'm just complaining about it. It wasn't fun at all. So here in about 5 minutes, we're going to have Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft, Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. Join the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the Colts. No first round pick this year. We'll talk about some of their positional needs and things. But before we do that, I just want to lay out what the Colts' needs are. So obviously they need a linebacker. Okay. Desperately they need a linebacker. No Zaire Franklin. Jermaine Pratt was fine last year, but they need another guy to kind of go alongside him. Braden Smith, he's playing for Houston now. He left in free agency. So now they're going to need, at a minimum, at least some depth at right tackle. Jalen Travis, though, is probably going to be the guy who slides into that starting spot. They also need a wide receiver because they traded Michael Pittman Jr. for a 7th-round pick. And Nick Westbrook-Akine, IU alum, isn't who you want lining up on the opposite side of Alec Pierce. He had 11 receptions last year. That was it. I don't care that he played at IU because for some reason, when you play for IU or Purdue and then you play for the Colts or the Pacers, everyone wants to give you a pass when you're not very good. Let's keep in mind, Nick Westbrook-Akine played for IU when they were bad, okay? Everyone loves Ashton Dulin. That guy has 40 career receptions. He's just not a starting level wide receiver in the NFL. Terrific gunner, going to continue to be an important part of special teams, but you don't want that guy replacing Michael Pittman Jr. So they need a linebacker, a wide receiver. They need an edge rusher. Still, 10 years of Chris Ballard trying, to draft edge rushers and 10 years of it going horribly. It would have been really nice if they could have signed Trey Hendrickson. But let's just be honest. Would you rather go play for the Ravens or the Colts? The answer is the Ravens. Hands down, right? That is an organization that is properly aligned. They just hired a new coach and Jesse Minter, who I think is going to do a fantastic job. Of course you would rather go play for the Ravens than the people here in Indy. So they still need an edge rusher, especially since Kwity Paye left. He's not playing for the Raiders. Kwity Paye, what a loss. That's how you know the Colts are bad. People are upset that Zaire Franklin and Kwity Paye are gone. I mean, geez Louise, man. I just
can't be too surprised with the Colts, man, to be honest.
You can't.
I mean, you can lay out all the expectations you want for the draft, but, dude, we're talking about the Colts that brought in Phillip Rivers, that signed a power forward from Notre Dame to come in and play tight end or something. What?
Yeah.
So, I mean, And we don't know what we're doing with Richardson. Nobody wants to make a trade. Me and Dan were talking about rumors about Russell Wilson potentially coming in as a backup. What do you think about that?
I think Russell Wilson as a backup would be awesome. As a back, actually, I don't know. Like, so, one of the things about Tim Tebow, and I promise I'm going to bring it back to Russell Wilson. Tim Tebow can't be a backup quarterback. His personality just would never allow it. And part of that was kind of his fame and notoriety made that hard. But like with Russell Wilson has to be at the center of attention. I think a lot of people don't like Russell Wilson in terms of his former teammates. Like if you hear Richard Sherman or Marshawn Lynch or Cam Chancellor, any of those guys that played with him, they're like, he sucks. He's a pain in the butt. And you can't have a guy like that as your backup quarterback. You need a guy who's a little friendlier, a guy who you'd be like, hey, man, like, let's go grab a beer. I don't think Russell Wilson's a let's go grab a beer together kind of guy. So I think he would be more of a distraction than anything. In terms of his ability to play football, great idea as a backup. I just don't know if personality-wise he's what you want. I think you want someone who's a little more low-key.
I would agree with that, but does it or does it not sound like a very Colts thing to do?
It does. It does. And so, we'll see what he ends up doing. But Kevin Potts hopefully joining the show here momentarily. So, yeah, man, I just, golly, the idea of Russell Wilson playing quarterback here, geez Louise, I can't even imagine. So, all right, hopefully we got Kevin Potts coming on the line here in just a second. Again, does so much stuff of just does so much work. He watches film, like you'll talk to him, and he'll be like, "Hey man, like who are you looking at today?" And he'll name like the second string corner at Toledo, and you're like, "Oh, that's great." Kevin Potts of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack joining the show now, dude. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be back. It's been too long since we've gotten to chat something that's not over text about the NFL draft. So I'm happy to be back on the show.
Dude, I'm glad to have you. And I feel like this first question, I'm really intrigued to kind of hear what you have to say here. So obviously the Indianapolis Colts don't have a first round pick this year. And compared to like other recent drafts, is this like a good year to not have a first round pick? Or is this a bad year to not have a first round pick? If you kind of know what I mean.
I think it's a good year to not have a first round pick, insofar as much as you can not have a first round pick being a good thing. Because I really do think the difference of the players that you're taking at pick 20 and pick 50 in this class is really, really small. This is a class that's gotten a lot of publicity about being a bad draft, and I don't always know if that's true, but I do think the top level talent is lacking compared to some of the previous drafts that I have done and evaluated. So I think if you're going to take the swing and miss out on that pick 16, I think it's more okay, because the difference from player 20 to player 50 for me is a lot smaller than it typically is.
Is part of the publicity for, this being a quote unquote bad draft class, just because I feel like the best players in this draft class aren't like premier guys, if that makes sense. Like, some people think that Jeremiah Love's the best player in the class. He's a running back. Everybody loves Caleb Downs. He's a safety. Is that part of why that's the publicity that it's getting?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Is there's not a lot of those premium positions with those locked in grades. Outside of Mendoza as a quarterback, most of the top guys, like you mentioned, Love, Styles, Downs, play positions, linebacker, safety, running back, they're not super valuable. There's not guys like even like a Malik Neighbors level wide receiver prospect in this class. So it makes sorting through those upper echelon players in the top 10 really difficult. And then taking a step further, even some of these guys that we really do like Ruben Bain Jr., Mekhi Lemon, they all have kind of one big issue with them. It varies from guy to guy, but what that has done is made a pretty wide-ranging of opinion on these players. So while one guy might really like Carnell Tate, someone like Mekhi Lemon, someone like Jordan Tyson, so even though each individual person might view one of these guys as a blue chipper, since it's also varied, it creates such a wide range of opinions that you get kind of this cluster at the top of the draft.
Okay. That makes sense. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. If you go to it, it can be a little overwhelming because there's just like player write-ups for like every prospect. It's really, really impressive. And, Kevin, I was looking at the Colts and kind of their needs. This is kind of what I've narrowed it down to. Let me know if you agree. I think they need a linebacker. They need an offensive tackle because Braden Smith left. They need an edge rusher because despite Chris Ballard seeming to use a first or second round pick on an edge rusher every year, we still don't have enough good ones. Defensive tackle probably needs a little bit more depth, and then a wide receiver because the idea of playing Westbrook-Akine, who had 11 receptions last year in place of Michael Pittman Jr., that just doesn't sound great. What do you think about that list of needs for the Colts?
Yeah, I think that's about what I was seeing when I looked on the depth chart. I think tackle is probably something that they can get away with a little bit more just because they have this history of drafting and developing these day 2 and day 3 guys and doing a really good job of it. The other positions, like you mentioned, receiver and linebacker are the two where you look at the depth chart and the names that are there, there's some pretty big holes in some spots. But the good thing is those are two areas of depth and strength in this year's draft, particularly where they're picking at 47, I believe. So they are going to have an opportunity to potentially get an instant impact replacement, even in the second round.
Yep. So they're picking at 47th, like you said. So like the receivers in this draft class, I think people are pretty familiar, especially since Omar Cooper Jr. He's probably early second, late first. Elijah Surratt seems like a late second, early third kind of a guy. But I want to start with the linebackers because that's been an issue here in Indy for quite some time. Who are some of the guys to kind of keep an eye on in terms of who the Colts could take at 47 at linebacker?
Yeah, so obviously they're going to miss out on the two Ohio State guys in Styles and Reese because they're top 10 picks. And I think that second tier, there's probably 4 to 5 names you'd be looking at here, which is a nice selection of guys to choose from. Josiah Trotter from Missouri, C.J. Allen from Georgia, Jake Galladay from Cincinnati, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, and Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. So it's 5 players that I think are going to be around fringe top 50 guys, and they all are going to offer different things. I think Hill Jr. is your upside swing of this big, long, athletic, fluid mover. Guys like Trotter and Allen are the SEC run-stuffing linebackers who maybe have some issues in coverage, but I think they're plug and play on early downs. And then Jacob Rodriguez is the guy that I think everyone loves and if anyone's watched college football. Him being on the Heisman podium as a defensive player is super rare, and he was super awesome. I'm a little bit lower on him as a prospect overall, but I know some people think he could be a potential late first rounder, especially after a good combine. So there's going to be a couple different options for the Colts, depending on what type of linebacker they're looking for.
Okay. I'm really intrigued because it seems, Lou Anarumo likes to play man. It seems like he wants linebackers who can really run. You being lower on Jacob Rodriguez, whenever I watched him, I always thought he looked a little small. Is his size the issue? Because he's a guy that I really like potentially for the Colts.
Yeah, I think the size was the first of the main issue. I just don't think he's going to be great getting off of blocks in the box. I think if he goes to a scheme that has good defensive tackles in front of him that's going to keep him clean, I think that athleticism and the processing is going to be good enough that he's going to be a good backer. But if you're not able to keep him clean, he's just going to struggle in the run game, in my opinion. And the second thing is he gets a lot of hype as this coverage player because he had really good ball production over the course of his career, particularly last year, and had a nice senior ball. I think there's a little bit more boom bust to his profile as a coverage player. Yes, there's some really big splash plays, but I think there's also a lot of negatives. There's a lot of routes that pop open behind him that really need to get cleaned up. And it's not to say he can't do it, but for a smaller player who doesn't really have the length and is a good, not great athlete, there's just a lot of question marks I have for him that I get a little uncomfortable with him getting pushed up into the early second round, and I view him more as an early third round type of player.
Oh, wow. So you're way lower on him than everybody else, it seems, which is, hey man, like you're the one who told me that Drake May was going to be the best quarterback in that draft class. And so far you have been correct. So I will defer to you. Joined by Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. What about wide receiver? Because that is, it's a pretty dire spot right now for the Colts, especially with just the lack of depth and top end talent too, to be quite frank.
Well, it's a great class. I feel like we say this every year at this point, but there are a ton of different players at all 3 days of the draft that offer different skill sets. I have, I believe, 13 in my top 75 or something like that right now. So there's a bunch of good players. And I do think this is a class where the strength is that second and third round. I think for the Colts specifically, just kind of looking at what their room is with Downs and Pierce, you kind of need that dirty work guy to replace kind of what Pittman did. I know you mentioned Elijah Surratt. I think that would be a really nice option in the third round. I'm a big fan of Jeremy Bernard as well, the wide receiver from Alabama. I think both those guys can fit that bigger bodied power slot that's good against zone coverage. But if you're looking for something with a little bit more juice, there's guys like Chris Bell and Ted Hurst who are these big, powerful speed guys. There's just a bunch of different options and body types depending on how the Colts want to go. And I think at 47, outside of maybe like the top 5 guys, they're going to have their selection of pretty much any body type they would want in the second round if that's what they're looking at.
I'll just ask you, watching Indiana this year, I felt like Elijah Surratt really only did like 2 things, and that was like this little back shoulder fade and comeback routes. And I'm just really curious, like, you know, I think we see this with young receivers a lot. They get to the NFL and the route tree expands by a lot, and then we see them really struggle early. What did you kind of see from Surratt on his ability to actually like run routes?
Yeah, I think if you're going to bring in Surratt and you're going to ask him to go be the outside receiver that he was at Indiana, you're not going to be happy with those results. I just don't think that he is a good enough athlete to consistently separate against man coverage on the outside. He can do some stuff, like you mentioned, those back shoulder balls were really impressive. And I do think there is some value to him as a player. But I thought he was the third best separator on that team. I thought Cooper and Becker were both more dynamic players. I think Surratt's best case to be successful is actually in more of a Juwan Jennings type of role with how he was used in San Francisco, where you are this big slot receiver that's almost kind of a quasi tight end. Because I think where Surratt's at his best is the toughness, the ability to go win at the catch point. And I think he's a really smart route runner. I think he understands zone coverage, where to settle down, how to manipulate it. So if you're using him more over the middle of the field as a blocker and this complementary piece, I think he's a really nice option in the room. If you're drafting him to be your starting X receiver like he was at Indiana, I just don't think he has the size or the juice to do that at a consistent level. And then you're probably going to be disappointed with that type of pick.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And I'm trying to compare him because it's really interesting. 'Cause I think he looks body type wise pretty similar to Michael Pittman Jr., who's obviously the guy who left. And so I'm just kind of curious to see how his career pans out. Whereas, like you said, Omar Cooper Jr., dude's just a stud. Reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel. Reminds me of like Josh Downs, but he's just bigger. He probably won't be available at 47, I wouldn't think. But man, like that guy, I think he's going to be a stud. What are kind of your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's awesome. And I think he's so good to the point that he's not going to sniff 47. I think this is a guy who's pushing up on the top 20 now at this point. He's gotten a lot of hype over the past month. He's my wide receiver 6 and my number 2 slot receiver. I break out perimeter and slot receiver guys. Some of the names you mentioned comp-wise, 2 more I'll throw out. Luther Burden and Brandon Ayuk. He's not as big as Ayuk, but I think it's another type of really good athlete. I think there's some cleaning up in the route running polish coming out of college that Cooper needs to do, just like Ayuk and Burden had to do. We talked about having athleticism who went all 3 levels, got really long arms for his frame to go make those acrobatic catches. I'm sure everyone remembers that Penn State catch, the body control in the back of the end zone is fantastic. And then he's awesome with the ball in his hands. There's really not a ton of holes in his profile outside of, I don't think he does anything at an elite level. And I would like some more of that nuance and polish, especially against zone coverage, to improve. But when you move like that and you can create with or without the ball, it's hard to see him getting out of the first round.
Okay. We're going to have you on several times leading up to the draft. So I want to save some of my more Colts specific questions. But look, man, you know how this works. This is Kevin Potts, writer of the Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdown Substack. The thing we care about more than anything else is quarterbacks. And I've seen guys like Dan Orlovsky, who's forgotten more about football than I'll probably ever know. And some other guys come out and like float the idea of Ty Simpson like his early season tape being better than Mendoza's and all this kind of stuff. What is your comparison of the two quarterbacks? Because those kind of seem like the top two guys in this class.
I personally don't think they're very close. I have Fernando Mendoza. I think he's going to end up as my number one overall player after positional versatility is accounted for. And Simpson is going to land more in that late second round grade, similar to where guys like Shuck and Dart were for me last year. And I do like Simpson. I think he does a lot of stuff at a pro level in terms of processing. And I think that's why you see some of these NFL guys get really into him, because he was asked to do a lot of that NFL caliber drop back stuff at Bama, and Mendoza wasn't always asked to do that. I think that's where you kind of get that discrepancy. The problem was he just wasn't very consistent at it, particularly when it comes to his accuracy. It's very scattershot. I think there's some really nice moments, but there's too many times, especially when I was watching other guys on his team, where the ball is just not in the right spot to let his player go make a play. And it's awesome that he has this processing skills and does some of the harder stuff. But if you can't operate at a basic level, it's really hard for a team to get on board taking him with a high pick. I like Simpson. I think if a team on day 2 wants to take a shot as like, hey, we're going to develop this guy into a starter because he does a lot of things well, I'm all the way for it. But I don't think he's got consistent enough tape in his 1 year of starting. And he's just not the biggest dude with an injury history. There's just a lot of concerns stacking up for him, where a guy like Mendoza has about as clean of a profile as you're going to see, outside of the fact that he's just not an elite athlete.
That all makes sense. How many players have you gone through so far this year and like actually written out your reports on them?
We are at just over 110 so far. So the goal will be to probably get around 150 before the draft. That's usually kind of what I shoot for.
Okay, that's incredible, man. Well, Kevin, as I said, we will have you on again as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure. It's good to be back.
You got it, man. See ya. That is Kevin Potts. Check out his stuff at KPotts NFL. It should be on X, and you can read his stuff as well over at Kevin Potts NFL and NFL Draft Breakdowns Substack. We will be back here in about 3 minutes to wrap up the show, and it's going to be a doozy, so stick around.
it may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on a Wednesday. No Dan Dockett show. It is. It's not an April Fool's joke. It is the Real Jonathan Smith going forward because, Dan left us. So if you want to know why, you can listen to a show from yesterday. Caden, right?
Yes, sir. Caden
joining. So you're new here?
I'm on that part-time promotions team right now with Andy.
Okay. All right, but you do play-by-play for
at the University of Indianapolis. Follow the basketball team around, football team around. We'll have softball and baseball here shortly.
Let's go. Do you have a sport that you prefer to call?
Basketball's the craft. Basketball's where I want to be at.
I feel like the best play-by-play guys do basketball.
It's, I think it's easy from a baseline perspective of play-by-play, but once you hop into it, it's one of those where you can really sound different than the guy next to you. It's something that you can really make yours, and that's why I enjoy basketball.
I like your voice, dude. You got a good voice for it.
I appreciate
awesome.
it.
Yeah, you got it. So, because you're a hoops guy, who do you like in the Final Four this weekend?
I really thought Duke was Goliath. And now that they've been beat by UConn, I think Arizona takes that number one spot right now. But I would be lying if I said that anyone was a clear favorite at this point because Illinois and their roster has the ability to score and defend. When they were playing Houston, they were in the second half, and the score was like 36-28 with 15 minutes left. When you can play a game like that and also playing games where you're scoring near 80, even sometimes 90 points, shows you how deep your team is, not just team-wise, but skill-wise. And I really like what they give.
I think that's a really good point. I like Arizona. The level of variance with them is just so low. Like, you know what you're getting from them, I think, every time.
They have the highest floor. That's what I think about Arizona.
Yeah.
Like, they could play their worst game and still play a game with
They
anybody
haven't
in the
played
country.
a bad game. They
Exactly.
haven't played a bad game all year. And I'm really intrigued to see how they kind of deal with the size of Michigan because, like, Arizona in and of themselves, like, they have a large team. But, like, Michigan, they play one guy who's 6'2", and everyone else is, like, 6'4" and up. So it's really impressive stuff from them. I'm of the belief that whoever wins that game is going to win the national title, and I would take Arizona to do that. So I'm just excited for the games. Are you going? You forking out $1,000 to go watch the game?
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could stomach that, man. It will take a week to get back from, at least. But Michigan, the way they've steamrolled through the tournament, that's not easy to do. And I don't think they've necessarily had the hardest path there, but there is no such thing as an easy path to the Final Four.
That's true. I do agree that, like, I feel like Arizona's path, which, like, they've blasted everybody, but, they beat a really good Arkansas team, handled them. The way they handled Purdue, especially in that second half, was just not eye-opening because we've seen them do it all year, but in that moment,
Purdue team was a lot better than people think. I mean, just 1 through 5, that's almost an NBA-style constructed roster. You have a point guard who can run the show, 2 really good bigs with shooters all around. To get a win by double figures and a really not even close second half says a lot about what they can do.
It does. They're fun, man. They're a really good team. So I'm excited for it. I hate the national title games on a Monday. I don't know why they do this. It bothers me, but it's fine. It's just me being grumpy.
I understand.
Because
I feel like
it'll be like
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock,
Something
like
crazy
normal
like
or
that?
something like that. Just late enough from like, man, I gotta stay up till 10:30.
Just late enough to make Tuesday not as fun as it might be.
Tuesday's going to be rough.
That's the best part of the show, dude. I don't have to be here till noon. They can start the game at
That's a good spot.
11 p.m. for all I care. I mean, it's awesome. Well, Caden, welcome in, man. Feel free to stop by whenever, dude. Hopefully we'll see you out doing the promotions and stuff and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, man. How much time we got left? We got 2 minutes. Chris, scale of 1 to 10. How was my first show today?
11.
11? I don't know about that. It's a little nice.
It's solid, man. It's good to have you back. And, dude, like I said, you have a big smile on your face, ear to ear. You're happy to be here, and we're looking forward to building this thing up.
Me too, man. It's going to be a blast. And, Dan Dockett's just gone, but, like, he's going to be back on Friday. He'll be a part of the show going forward. It'll be, a lot of fun. We got Zach Gray, who's going to join the show on Friday. He'll be a real staple as well. The best sports gambler I know. And I know that, like, the Stack Man is God around here when it comes to that. Speaking of which, Stack, man, if you have bets, call in tomorrow, dude. I want to hear them.
You got money to lose? Just because you worked at a bank doesn't mean you have money right now, man.
I mean, I got some money I could lose, nothing. I'm not, I'm not going to go crazy or anything, but we'll see. So, but yeah, Dan will be on Friday. My guy's Zach Gray, who again, the best sports gambler I know. It's insane. He hits like 60% of his bets, tracks all of it. He's got like an algorithm, and I'm like, hey man, sign me up. That sounds great. So he'll be on Friday, and then tomorrow we're hoping to land Jay Billis and maybe one more. So we'll see tomorrow's show. Either way, it's going to be great, either one way or the other. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow starting at noon. Make sure you follow us on socials at Ticket1430. Go subscribe to the YouTube page and follow me on X as well at __Jonathan Smith. And we will talk to you tomorrow starting at noon. See ya.